And there'll be a lot of death,
So is the Republican Party finally waking up to the dark and dangerous possibilities this virus poses, not just to the American people, but the world?
I am in close communication with many prime ministers, heads of state and government leaders of the European Union. And for me, the absolute priority will be to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible so that we step by step also truly achieve independence from the USA.
In the early days of Trump and the Republican Party, it started with this: drain the swamp. It's a useless term, and we'll get to that in a minute. Now, D.C. used to be a swamp, literally. The Washington Monument was actually built on one, as you can see right here. But it didn't take long before it was obvious that Trump was a bigger cesspool of dirty water than D.C. had ever seen. And Trump rode that tide of fear and hate into power. And drain the swamp, the idea of backroom deals with corrupt politicians going away because Republicans came in? Not so much. We saw it right away with Trump cutting deals by charging Secret Service agents millions just to stay in his hotels and violating every part of the emoluments clause while daring someone to stop him. But even before Trump was elected via Putin's social media attack, it was obvious that Republicans didn't have what it took to stand up to him. The list of the weak and pitiful is a who's who of what's wrong with our system today. Rubio, Cruz, Rand Paul, Huckabee, Carson, Fiorina, Jeb Bush, W. Bush, they all spoke the truth while they were running, but afterwards, crickets. But why? Well, Trump is special, and not in a good way. When he wins, he continues to attack, which leaves these Republicans with two choices: stand up to Trump and risk your political future with the party, or do what they all did, cow themselves into a prostrate, ass-up, submissive, cowardly pose. And they never changed, from the grab him by the pussy moment.
You know what? So what if he wants to grab pussy?
To his dictatorially a-hole self.
I want to be a dictator.
Trump began to realize that the entire party had rolled over, and all he had to do was never back down. And the rest, as they say, is history.
You know, you don't have to like the words that come out of the man's mouth, but sometimes in life we all need a good paddling from the principal.
But this time around, while Trump rode in attacking Biden's economy, undocumented Americans, and trans people, a tactic which, while base and bigoted at its core, worked astonishingly well, Trump won in 2024 and believed that no one could stop him. He told the world they sucked, and his base perceived that as strength. But now, he's starting 2025 with a whole new agenda, which isn't going well at all. But it's not like he didn't tell us what he was going to do, right?
On January 20th, 2025, Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Unfortunately, he keeps his promises. Trump seizes control of a divided government, signing hundreds of executive orders implementing Project 2025. Trump replaces over 50,000 civil servants with hardline MAGA loyalists. The federal oath of office now requires declaring loyalty to the president, not the Constitution.
Let's get to that. But first, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. All you have to do is click and then you're in the show. Also, the first 10 people who subscribe today qualify for our annual Kick a Republican in the Balls, starting with Stephen Miller and Dairy Queen.
And so I'm very excited about that.
Okay, over the last 8 years, if the truth were a pandemic, Trump would be in exceptional health, lying on more than 40,000 documented occasions.
And I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy.
And his base not only tolerated it, they embraced it. But there's an old saying, don't shit where you eat. So when President Musk and the First Lady decided to attack federal workers, aka the swamp, his people cheered. Until that is, they started losing their jobs, their savings, and after some speculation, possibly their lives. So we started to see moments we hadn't seen in decades, when a Republican shows up and his Republican base takes him down.
The people would like to know what you, congressmen, and your fellow congressmen are going to do to rein in the megalomaniac in the White House.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are raising concerns about the growing federal layoffs. Among them is Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski. Wednesday, she spoke with CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns about a former staffer who was let go from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
She's with NOAA, but she accepted a new position, a higher position. She's been with them for a decade plus, but because she accepted this higher position, in this position she's considered probationary. And so she is the subject of these terminations.
Okay, this last part is important. There are federal workers across the entire country, and with this unelected cockwaffle threatening workers indiscriminately, people are getting pissed. This is Yosemite, one of our nation's most beautiful federal parks that people love to visit. But Musk has fired hundreds of rangers, so now there are 3 left to manage these hundreds of thousands of acres. The park will have to close. But it's not just Murkowski. Republican members of Congress are asking, who is this Musk guy other than a pampered billionaire who gets hundreds of millions from the U.S. to blow up rockets? And why does he have this power?
In a post on X, Musk said federal employees, quote, will shortly receive an email requesting to understand what they got done last week. Failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. It is unclear what legal basis Musk has to terminate federal workers if they fail to respond to his request.
I disagree with my colleagues, and unfortunately there are some that want to vote no on this resolution because they say it doesn't go far enough and we need to cut more. But we need to do this with a scalpel. I've said this repeatedly, not a sledgehammer. Some of the rash decisions that I've seen coming out of DOGE, which I do support, finding efficiencies. There is so much bloat in this bureaucracy that we have in the federal government, so much waste and overhead where the tax dollars are not actually benefiting citizens. It's going to just, pure bureaucracy. So I understand the need to find efficiencies, and I support that, but we need to do it in a responsible way so we don't have unintended consequences. What happened last week when we saw the rash decision to fire people and take away grants from the CDC, we saw the 9/11 healthcare program in New York City that benefits so many first responders and survivors from 9/11 that I represent. We had to go back to the White House and get that reversed. And so, again, that was an unintended consequence, but nonetheless it happened, and we had to get involved to reverse it. And that's what I'm trying to avoid here. Let's do the homework and make sure we're doing this right from the beginning and taking our time so we don't have unnecessary anxiety and unintended consequences later on.
All right, bravo for you, Congresswoman, but that's classic chicken shit MAGA. She knows Musk and Trump are off the rails, but it's the same old bloated bureaucracy bullshit. I mean, President Musk and the First Lady fired hundreds of National Nuclear Security Administration workers.
You are advised to go to your nearest shelter area immediately.
That doesn't sound too important, does it? The department's only responsible for designing, building, and overseeing the U.S. nuclear weapons stockpile. But when everyone in Congress finally said, wait, what the hell are you doing? Oh, they said, it was a mistake, and then we'll hire everybody back. But as of today, they still couldn't locate all the contact information for these workers.
How much do you think undocumented immigrants pay into the tax system every year?
Zero?
Nothing.
No, probably nothing. Undocumented, I would guess zero. And why would they pay anything?
2022, they paid $96 billion into the Social Security Medicare system.
It seems ludicrous that there would be that kind of money coming in.
You are 100% right, given everything we've heard.
A recent poll commissioned by the Environmental Protection Network found overwhelming public support for the EPA across all demographics, including Trump voters. And when we talk about big or bloated government, it's also worth noting that the EPA and the Department of Interior, also on Trump's chopping block, make up only 0.69% and 0.76% of the federal budget, respectively. Spending by CDC, NIH, and NOAA is also minuscule compared with other parts of the federal government. And despite all this bullshit about the growth in the federal workforce, the size of the federal government has remained relatively stable since World War II. But if you've been paying attention, none of this should surprise you. As our economy awaits the results of deportations and tariffs, as inflation inches higher and bird flu hangs in the air as a possible super pandemic, President Musk and the First Lady are beginning to finally feel the heat. But is it too late? I mean, this time Republicans are looking at a lame duck with nuclear weapons. With this knowledge front and center, there's no one else to blame.
Stupid or something.
Damn right.
I'm as mad as hell.
I don't want to talk about this stuff.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Tick-tock.
We're in a lot of trouble, Donnie.
I think he's crazy.
I'm Chip Franklin.